So during our N conference, I'm really excited to talk to Chris Voss today. He's the former lead negotiator and the CEO of the Black Swan Group. And you may also know him as the author of the famous book, Never Split the Difference. Chris, as being known as the master of negotiation, it's really great to have you here today.
Thank you. It's very kind. I appreciate it.
So starting off with a question that relates to the preparation phase, is it important for people to know exactly what they want before going into a negotiation? Or is there a kind of exploratory phase?
It should be exploratory. I mean, never be so sure of what you want that you wouldn't take something better. Knowing exactly what you want has a tendency to cause you to miss better opportunities. So you can, in general terms, have an idea. But intellectually and realistically, it's impossible to know everything. We live in a world of imperfect information. And not only do you not know everything, the other side's holding back things that are important. Otherwise, they wouldn't hold them back. So if they're important, you can't possibly know the best outcome. So you get too tied to a goal, you get tunnel vision, and you miss better opportunities.
Mm-hmm. That's a great insight, because from our perspective at the Schranner Negotiation Institute, we recommend to not focus too much on the other side during the preparation, but we recommend to focus only on our strategies, our tactics, and our goals. So what is your perspective on this point?
I think that's a great portion of it. I mean, you definitely want to have an idea of what your strategy and tactics and goals are. I mean, you want to have an idea. You just don't want to be completely wedded to them, completely determined that that's what you're going to get. I mean, it's very much, many sporting events, the great professional sports team, they have strategy, tactics, and goals before the game starts. And then when it starts, things change. And you've got to be prepared for things to change. So your strategy and tactics and goals are great as long as you're flexible enough to be able to adapt in a moment.
Yeah, that's very true. But you also talked about tactical empathy during your keynote. What is it? What is that all about?
Tactical empathy is really the application of empathy guided by what we now know to be true by neuroscience. What we know to be true is basically everyone in their normal mode of thinking is survival mode, which is largely negative. Success mode is not your normal way of thinking. Success mode is positive. So how do I get you from survival to success? Get rid of the negative emotions. What's the best way to get rid of the negative emotions? Call them out. And the great thing about calling out negative emotions is everybody's afraid, what if I call out a negative emotion and it wasn't there? Did I plant it? As it turns out, you actually inoculate people from it. Like if I haven't said anything to offend you, and I say, look, this is going to sound disrespectful. And then I wait, and I wait till you give me permission to go forward. Then whatever I say after that doesn't sound that bad. Because you prepared yourself, because people are largely negative, what you imagine before I say it is, I'm going to say something deeply, personally insulting. No matter what I've said, it's not going to be as bad as you've imagined. So then I've inoculated, and when I say what I have to say, then you go like, wow, it wasn't that bad. So knowing how to navigate negative emotions is critical in accelerating the process.
And that relates to my next question, because in your book you are also saying that your emotions aren't the obstacle, right? They're the means. So this statement directly relates to that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's emotions are either the accelerant or the friction. And you don't get rid of friction by adding more accelerant. You get rid of the friction. And then the positive emotions have a tendency to start taking over and moving things along very quickly.
When thinking about leading a negotiation, how important is listening as an advanced negotiation technique?
Well, it's every negotiation book and every negotiation approach I've ever seen always lists listening as an advanced technique. It's not just a matter of staying quiet. It's actually processing and reflecting upon what the person has said and what it means to them and gathering information critically. And sometimes it's as much about noticing what isn't said. Well, they should have said this, they should have reacted like this, but they didn't. What does that tell me? So listening is a highly analytical endeavor. I heard a speaker on a podcast not long ago say empathy is a species of reason. Listening is a way to reason and understand what's going on. And to listen well requires work. And the people that don't listen well are the ones that are just lazy.
So in terms of leading the process, we are advocates of leading the negotiation process from the beginning, right? So what is your perspective? Are you a more reactive negotiator or a proactive negotiator?
Well, I think of myself, I think of us as massively proactive. But we're proactive first on the emotional aspects. How do I negotiate in an emotionally intelligent way that accelerates the process? Like, for example, we don't negotiate over price. But I don't say that. If you want to know what my price is, I go, it's a lot. It's really expensive, more than you've ever paid. And then you choose whether or not you want to go on. And this is very much like the negative that I told you before. You're going to imagine a horrible price. And you won't allow me to go on until you've contemplated the price and at least said to yourself, all right, so if it's this price, if what I get for this, it'll be worth it, now you're actually curious about the package. And so now we're no longer talking about price. We're talking about what you get for the price. So I'm going to be very proactive in that regard.
So when you're talking to me right now, you're really using your voice, right? To trying to like get the conversation going. It really fascinates me. What is it about your voice? So you're mentioning 3 different voices in your book, right? So can you give me a little more detail about that?
Well, I'm trying to keep you interested and engaged. And so how am I doing that? It's pacing, it's inflection upward or downward. It's whether or not I smile. Because you can hear a smile. And if you hear it, you feel it. It actually triggers a neurochemical reaction in your brain that makes you smarter. You're 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind. If I can put you in a good mood, you'll actually be smarter. If I want to collaborate with you, that's good for me. So I'm very respectful in trying to keep you engaged with me, also not in a way that feels domineering. Like some people, their pacing is designed so you don't speak. My pacing's not designed that way. My pacing is designed so that you can jump in whenever you want.
So at the Schranner Negotiation Institute, we always recommend to never commit yourself too early in a negotiation. So what is your perspective on that? How do you perceive a yes or a no of the counterpart? Because that's also a really interesting point, right?
Yeah, well, I'm always worried about leaving a better deal on the table. So if I commit myself too early, the chances that I've missed out on a better opportunity is really high.
Right.
Now, I don't want to spend forever getting a deal. So that's why we got to get collaborative as soon as possible and start sharing information. You're going to collaborate with me and share information with me if you don't feel like I'm there to hurt you. If you feel like I'm there to hurt you, take advantage of you, what a lot of companies do is scope creep. They keep asking for more and more and more. That's not to help you. That's not good for you. I don't do that. So I don't want to commit too early because I know there's probably a better deal on the table. Now, yes and no, first of all, I'm out of the yes business entirely. I don't try to get anybody to say yes. Agreement and yes are not synonymous. Yes in its best form is only hope. The majority of the time, yes is counterfeit, cautious, concerned, worried about where it's going. So I don't even bother with the word. Like I'll say, do you disagree instead of do you agree? Because you'll say, well, I don't disagree, but here are the following problems. Boom, I got information. I got problems instantly out of you. Because you said no to start with, you felt safe giving me the problems. If I say to you, does this look like something that would work for you? If you were to say yes, I hope you would say yes, but here are the problems. But nobody ever does that. Because the yes feels like I'm digging myself in a hole. So to avoid all the problems of yes, I want you to say that's right. I want you to say that works for me. I get out of yes entirely. And since I know how no makes you feel to say, and you feel safe, and you feel safe telling me about your reservations if you've said no, then I'm going to use that so that you can proceed with me and trust where it's going to go.
Right. So the next time I'm in a negotiation, I will listen to those "that's right" kind of things. That's a good advice. So now we've talked a lot about negotiation at the individual level. What is about when it comes to like more people? What is it the perfect team setup for a negotiation from your perspective?
Well, if I'm in an important negotiation, I've always got another person there as another set of ears. Most people, when they're negotiating as a team, they're negotiating at the same time as opposed to negotiating together. Like most business models, somebody say, okay, you handle this aspect, and you handle this aspect, and you handle this aspect. You be the perfect expert on this. This is the expertise you bring to the table. So what happens when that team goes to the table? If this person is not talking about their area of expertise, they're not listening. They're not paying attention to anything that's going on. They're getting ready, they're taking notes. They might as well not even be in the room. We don't negotiate that way. If you're on my team, then I'm going to ask you to listen for the stuff that I've missed, and I'm going to miss some things. And then your job is to actually speak up and say, you know, I heard you say that this worked for you. I heard you say to Chris that this looked like something that could move forward, but there's something you said a minute ago, and also the tone of your voice. It seems like something's bothering you right here. Now, if you're a listener, you're going to catch that, and I'm going to miss it because I was busy thinking about what I wanted to say. So when we negotiate in a team, additional people there are not additional expertise, they're additional listening.
Right, because we at the Schranner Negotiation Institute, we have those three kind of roles, right? We have the decision maker, we have the negotiator, and the commander, and every one of them has three different tasks to do. So the negotiator is the one who's leading the negotiation, right? So he or she has to really reach the target. Then we have the commander. So the commander is really like having this really great overview. He or she's the one who listens really well. And then we have the decision maker, right? And this person should never be at the negotiation table because we don't want any decision maker at the negotiation table because the negotiation team really has to have the mandate for the negotiation. So this is really our concept. But you have the same understanding, so you go into a negotiation really with someone who listens what the negotiator does. So.
Yeah, what you're talking about is highly complementary.
Yeah.
It's how do people work together for the maximum outcome.
So when looking at my negotiation counterpart, are there specific people I should be mindful of?
Yeah, it depends upon how experienced they are and also what your gut instinct is telling you. Are they trying to collaborate or are they trying to take advantage of you? Now, the assertive type, the three types again, assertive, analytical, accommodator, it's our contention, our hypothesis that the world really does break pretty evenly into thirds. Some groups are a little bit more of one type or the other. But what does that mean in a negotiation? If you're naturally much more assertive, if you're much more direct and honest, I might perceive you to be angry when you're not angry at all. And I have to be aware of that. Because I'm likely to be triggered negatively if I feel that you're aggressive. It's going to naturally kick up a defense mechanism in me. And you might be just shocked that I thought that you were angry. That happens with assertives all the time. I'm a natural born assertive. And if I really get down to business, I mean, I can be so direct that people will perceive me to be angry when I'm not. Yeah. So that happens to assertives a lot. Analysts seem detached. They're thinking. And so you got to give them time to think. Accommodators, relationship-oriented people. They seem really friendly and happy all the time. They're actually a little short on detail in many cases. And so they will hope is a problem with them. Hope is not a strategy is a phrase in business that I think is most attributed to analysts, because analysts are accommodators, because accommodators are always hoping things will work out without really dealing with them with clarity. So if I sense that you're an accommodator, if you're just very hopeful, I'm going to need to be a lot more clear on details with you, because you're going to leave a lot of detail out. And you're likely to agree to something that you actually don't think will work out, but you're so hopeful that you think there'll be divine intervention and it'll be wonderful. Accommodators are kind of guilty of that.
And does it help before going into a negotiation to know which type I am?
Yes, because whatever type you are, your natural traits are essential and inadequate. So whatever type you are, what you naturally feel good doing is critical, but it's not enough. You should be relationship oriented. You should be hope focused. Hope needs how. And how is about how an analyst thinks. How are we going to get this done? So hope by itself is inadequate. Hope with how works out pretty well. So be aware of where you might be a little bit short in the negotiation or how you might handicap yourself, and then just think of the complementary skills that you need.
So Chris, to conclude, are there any negotiation aspects in your career that still surprise you?
Well, I've thought about them all a million times. I'm constantly trying to learn, constantly trying to get better, constantly going over stuff. So I'm a little, these days, when the book came out in a master class, really emphasized the late night FM DJ voice a lot. But I'm getting so much more enjoyable outcomes and better outcomes faster with a playful tone of voice. Like if I can get playful, we get someplace good real quick. And I'm really emphasizing that a lot. And there may be some surprise there.
Okay, great. Thank you really much, Chris, for sharing all of your insights and negotiation advices. I really appreciate it to talk to you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.